Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da, habati fillah. Continuing on in our study of the advice for Ahl Sunnah, or for the youth of Ahl Sunnah, we reach the 8th point. And again, this is an important treatise for us, and it has relevance throughout time, or at least since the time that this was written. It has a lot of relevance for us because there's so many people, because there's new generations of people, wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi barakatuh, who are coming to the da'wah to Ahl Sunnah, but they don't know how to deal with all the madness. So some of the people are scared of the da'wah to Salafiyah. They're fearful. They've heard negative. They've witnessed negative, because so many people, because there's still a lot of ignorant people who are misleading the people and misguiding the people with false principles and false accusations and evil. And so it's very important for us to know how Ahl Sunnah, how they should behave with one another, and some of these things, some of these principles, the principles of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And all of this is to say that this piece of advice from our Shaykh, gives us a lot of, there's a lot of benefit if we want to take and benefit from the advice of the Shaykh. So he said, the 8th point, he says, it is imperative that the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, those who are recognized for soundness in Aqidah and Ijtihad, academic diligence, in aiding the Sunnah, that their status be preserved and their prestige and rank be acknowledged. It is not permissible to belittle them or accuse them of being innovators, or accuse them of following their desires and being fanatical towards their opinions or their positions based upon a mistake they may have made in their ijtihad. This is very important. Right there, the Sheikh just gave us a whole bunch of very important precepts of Ahl Sunnah, that we should be respectful of the scholars and know their status. We should not belittle them. We should not be extreme in exalting them and blind following, and some people actually almost go to the extent of worshiping scholars, wa'iyadun billah. But we have to have the right balance, and we should definitely not belittle them and try to take away from their status and accuse them of being mubtadi'ah, or accuse them for being fanatical, or whatever the case may be. All of these things are very important for us to consider, and especially when speaking about the scholars. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said, there is no doubt that the mistakes made by this ummah and some of the precise matters of knowledge are forgiven and pardoned, even in the issues of Aqidah. If this wasn't the case, then many of the virtuous scholars would have been destroyed as a result. For Allah forgives the one who is ignorant of the impermissibility of alcohol due to the fact that he was raised in an ignorant environment, coupled with the fact that he himself is not a student of knowledge. So the virtuous scholar, the one who is diligent in seeking knowledge according to his ability, in his time and locality, if his intent is to follow the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as much as he can, then he is more deserving that Allah should accept from him his hasanat, his good efforts and deeds, and reward him for his ijtihadat, meaning his striving to gain a hukum, a ruling, a shari'i ruling, and not punish him for his error, which is in fact an actualization of the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbana la tu'akhidna in nasina o akhtatna. O our Lord, don't punish us if we forget or fall into error. So here, the Shaykh is just mentioning that sometimes people do things out of ignorance and that they're still excused. And that scholars make mistakes, as everyone makes mistakes. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Kul ibn Adam khata wa khayra khata'ina tawabun. All the children of Adam commit sins or make mistakes, and the best of those are those who repent. So we see that no one is free from mistakes. And as Shaykh al-Islam said something so important, subhanAllah, but you hear du'at, and you take from students of knowledge who tell you otherwise, and you just run and rush to that. But yet Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentions the fact that there were many ulama of the Sunnah who had made mistakes, and some of them even in Aqidah, and that still did not take away from their status. That they even made mistakes in Aqidah, but they are still Imams of the Sunnah. So that shows us the importance of not rushing to take anyone off the Sunnah unless they warrant that, unless it is based upon knowledge, from a person of knowledge, and a person who is using the wabit in principles, not their hawa and not their hizbiyah. So it's very important for us to have that understanding. He also said, meaning Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah also said, this is the opinion of the Salaf. Do you want to follow the opinion of the Salaf, or do you want to follow these other people? He said, this is the opinion of the Salaf and those Imams qualified to issue legal rulings like Abu Hanifa, Ash-Shafi'i, Al-Thawri, and Dawood ibn Ali, and others. They don't fault the mujtahid who has erred, meaning he made a mistake, in the fundamental issues, meaning issues of Aqidah even, of the religion, nor the subsidiary matters like the furu' or the branches in science, or possibly even, you could say, some of the fiqh, that which is not from the usul. Ibn Hazm and others also mentioned this about them. They mentioned that this was a well-known position amongst Sahaba and those who followed them in goodness, meaning the Tabi'un, and the well-respected Imams of this religion. They don't make takfir, nor tafsiq, nor fault anyone from the mujtahidun, meaning those people who are making a legitimate effort to derive a Sharia-based ruling based on knowledge, meaning that they're people of ijtihad, people of knowledge themselves. If they err, not in the matters of Aqidah nor in the matters of fiqh, meaning that even if they made a mistake in Aqidah, and if they made a mistake in fiqh, the people don't rush to take them, the Imams of the Sunnah, the Salaf didn't rush to take them off the minhaj, the methodology. And separation of the fundamental and subsidiary issues is only acknowledged by the people of innovation, the people of rhetoric, meaning Ahl Kalam, the Mu'tazila, the Jahmiyyah, and those who follow their methodology. So here Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah is mentioning something very important, and that is that Ahl Sunnah, the Imams of Ahl Sunnah, and those people who have knowledge, that they make ijtihad. And وَيُصِيبُ يُخْطِي. Sometimes they get something correct, sometimes they make mistakes. And that even when they made mistakes, that does not take them off the minhaj of the Salaf, the methodology of the Salaf al-Salih, the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. That does not remove them just for making a mistake. So the Imams of the Sunnah were not quick and in a hurry to take people off the Sunnah. Whereas what we see today is we see many people who rush and are active and vigilant in following up the mistakes of people to take them off the Sunnah. and not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. And so this is very, very important that we are not quick to rush people, to take people off the Sunnah. He said the establishment of this principle does not imply that the scholar should not be advised if he errs. Rather, it is obligatory for the one who recognizes his error to advise him. This, in fact, is considered reverence of him and seen as a good act, but this advice should be done with leniency and gentleness and in a manner that is commensurate with his prestige and rank in knowledge and virtue. If he retracts from his mistake and returns to what is correct, then this is accepted from him, and it is not permissible afterwards to talk about him or blame him for his mistake. And there should be no doubt about his return to the haqq. If he doesn't retract his mistake, based upon a particular understanding he holds or due to a misconception that has hindered him from understanding the truth of the matter, then the error itself should be considered. If in fact his error is something which is restricted to himself, then he is free from blame due to the fact that he is responsible for his own self-rectification. However, if this error has spread amongst the people, then they are to be made aware of it and cautioned against it, in addition to the preservation of the rank and status of that scholar. It is important here that we draw attention to two important principles. First, dedicating oneself totally to the truth, to the haqq. Second, preserving the status of the ulama. I hope that you're listening. And Ahabati Fillah, this is very important that the Shaykh is mentioning here. And he's taking this from the book, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the Salaf, and the Aqwal of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi alayhi, rahmatin wasi'ah. That two things he's saying, your job is to adhere to the truth. And when I see some of the questions, and I see the controversy that people are still getting into, year after year, day after day, the same questions, that shows me that there's a lot of people who don't want the truth. There's a lot of people who don't want the truth. So I'm going to just be honest about it. A lot of people don't care about the haqq. They care about following people. They care about following individuals. They care about personalities. And they need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because your hizbiyah and your questions of hizbiyah and your constant immersion in hizbiyah, in group partisanship. These guys said this about this one. This one said this about this one. I'm confused about someone. Every day you're confused. Why? You're confused. The guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get confused when you let people play with you like a ping pong and smack you on this and smack you over there. This one's off it. This one's on it. You better get down with us. You better follow our minhaj. You better follow us. We are with the scholars. We are the Salafis. What kind of nonsense is that? Wake up. Wake up. Because so many people are in the same batil, and generation after generation of youth are so misguided. Some of them can't even tell the left from the right. And then they listen to everyone. They listen to this one say this one. Ahl Bidah says this, I like it. Ahl Zandaka says this, I like it. Oh, these guys claim to be Salafi and they say this, I like it. So then the people are, no wonder you're confused. If you focus on worshiping your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you seek knowledge to draw nearer to Allah Azza wa Jal, you'll be less confused. When you find the deliciousness of seeking ilm, lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll be less confused. You won't be confused. Your job is not to follow so-and-so and so-and-so, and blind follow what you hear even from students of knowledge or alleged students of knowledge. There's some people who haven't even studied. I'm not going to name names. They are not even known for have ever leaving some of their countries, except for little sittings here and little sittings there. And people claim that they are alama, and they claim that they're a scholar, and he's this sheikh so-and-so, ustad so-and-so. Some of these guys have not studied anything hardly. Subhanallah. And you follow them, blind follow them. This is shameful. So know who you take your knowledge from. Know what they're telling you. Learn your deen so you're not being played with and being played like a ping pong until you just leave the fold of Ahl Sunnah, and some people even leave the fold of Islam because they blind follow individuals and personalities. And then they let the people give them false qawa'id and usul. They give them false principles, false foundations to follow. Subhanallah. Subhanallah, what a shame. May Allah guide us all. Ameen. So the Sheikh then says, he says, these two principles do not contradict one another as far as Ahl Sunnah are concerned. And none should go to the extreme concerning one of them at the expense of the other. Indeed, loving the ulama and acknowledging their rank and status does not mean that you have to be silent about their mistakes or avoid cautioning the people against them. And again, that's for the purpose of knowledge. He's talking to, this book is more for students of knowledge. This isn't just like something the Sheikh would have put in the masjid. He was talking to students of knowledge from Ahl Sunnah that have gotten into arguments and fighting one another. So this is what this is written for. So I don't even know if I should be teaching this, really, because maybe some of you are inclined to be students of knowledge, but some of you aren't. Some of you just want to listen to a lecture. I don't know. But the point is that that's who this was written for. So the point is also that don't involve yourself with speaking about the scholars and really the du'at even the students of knowledge. Be careful. Don't attack them. Benefit from the students of knowledge of Ahl Sunnah. But you have to know the Qawaid and Usul of Ahl Sunnah to be able to determine if someone's of Ahl Sunnah. Can we take from him or not? That's what's going to determine. It isn't somebody's opinion and this one's opinion. But these are things that are mundabit. And this is what we try to teach, that these things are principles and have foundations. Also, devoting yourself totally to the truth. That's important. That's what it's about. Coupled with cautioning the people against the mistakes of a scholar does not mean that you are belittling him or discrediting him. Rather, it is possible to combine the two, but only for the one who Allah has granted tawfiq, success to do so. The one who knows the methodology of the ulama when it comes to highlighting some of their mistakes and cautioning against them without belittling them has truly actualized this matter. And there are many examples of this in the speech of the ulama. So that was the 8th point, and I think we'll look at these next points another time. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it in one more, probably 2 more sittings, it looks like. So I will now try to deal with some of the questions I've seen. May Allah guide us and the people, Ameen. The problem are to determine who's the dust du'at of Jahannam today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Will there be time for questions and answers? Yeah. So that's what I'm doing now. Do you consider Ustad Abdurrahman a Ustad, and can we learn from him? Well, it really doesn't matter what my view is, number one. Number two, I am familiar with him, and I've mentioned him in positive light in some of my videos, that I believe he is a person who has very strong knowledge, even though he's young in age, that he has a lot of potential, and I absolutely recommend, from what I've heard from him, that you benefit from him, and from what I've heard from other Tulab al-Ilm from Ahl Sunnah that recommend and say good about him. Naam. We should follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam always, yeah. What's your thoughts about Shadid Muhammad, and didn't Sheikh Al-Jabri call him Dal wa Mudil? Yes, Sheikh Ubaid said that a long time ago. And I haven't talked to Shadid Muhammad in a few years. And I don't know what he's doing these days, but I know he's active in dawah. I do know that. He's always been steeped in controversy, and he has knowledge. He has knowledge. Sheikh Obaid said what he said because people spoke to the Sheikh and said what they said. This is a long time ago. And unfortunately, this kind of controversy is exactly what the Sheikh is talking about here. The book that we're actually studying here is really my answer. In that these issues are so nuanced, and it is very shameful how some of the students of knowledge have abused the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal and have used it to destroy the reputation of many du'at al-khair and push people away from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ikhlas with that, because sometimes when you see that the world is going against you, of course that can push you away from the sunnah. We've known many people who were once scholars of the sunnah and they were pushed away because other people didn't have wisdom, they didn't have fiqh, they probably didn't really have that much knowledge. And what was a common practice prior, and probably still is now, is people rush like little girls and go to the scholars to speak about individuals in faraway lands in order to destroy the dawah. So for example, they'll say, Sheikh, we have someone in our community, he calls to black nationalism. Sheikh, we have someone in our community, he calls to this. What's your statement of that? He's the al-mudil. Sheikh, what's your opinion? This one is from Ahl Bidah. His usul is from Ahl Bidah. And he said this. Khalas, he's misguided. So one of the principles in the religion, the scholars mention, it's called that a hukm ala shay far'an ala tasawwurihi. The ruling on something, a part of that ruling is that you have a correct picture. So anyone can make a claim, especially if they have good relations with certain scholars, which we know certain brothers who have good relations, certain du'at or certain organizations that have used that and abused that power to destroy the credibility of many students of knowledge. So what they'll do is they'll bring their case and they'll make all kind of statements about someone. And then when they're making these statements and building a case against someone, they give the sheikh this picture. Anyone can do that. Anyone can say anything, even if they lie. And some of the times we've even caught people who just directly lie about individuals. And then they bring it to a scholar who might be well known for the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the scholar sometimes falls into the trap. Some scholars are more liable to fall into traps than others because they trust certain individuals and they trust them almost unrestrictedly. This is a dangerous thing. And the scholars that I respect the most, because as we said, scholars have different levels, are the scholars who don't fall into that trap. There are many scholars in Saudi Arabia, in Medina and otherwise, that if you tell them about someone, if I say there's a man named Bilal Phillips in my country, or there's a name named so-and-so in my country, and he does this and this and this, they will answer like this. If it is as you say, because they know it's a responsibility when they open their mouths and when they make a hukum on someone they don't know across the 7 seas. And that actually can be the source of destroying whole communities, like we've seen in the case of certain individuals. We had certain communities before that were thriving, that brought people from all walks of life, people from prisons, people who are wealthy, people who are places in government, who are all big, beautiful beards from the people trying to practice the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The sisters, there would hardly be a sister in the community without niqab, trying to practice the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't say there wasn't shortcomings. We don't say that people weren't weak and didn't have sins. That's not what we're saying. But they were trying. But then, when people didn't have wisdom and they took the affairs and some mistakes of some of their their leaders in those communities, those du'at, they took it to the scholars destroyed. The dawah was destroyed. In places, people used to make hijrah to a particular city in America and want to make it from around the world because the dawah was so strong. Not anymore. So that's why a part of making a ruling on something is that you have a good picture of it. You have a good image of it. And likewise, those kind of questions are not always beneficial. So let me ask you, you already know all the statements that have been collected against Shadeed Muhammad. You've seen how many students, especially from the Salafi publication side, and some of the scholars from Ahl Sunnah that they have gotten fatwa from to attack Shadeed Muhammad and to destroy his dawah. So you already know this. This is an old issue. Why would you ask me now? So that's my answer. Next question. I'm confused. Could you please explain the ayah where Allah mentions everything will perish except his face? The people of innovation say, if we take this literally, it insinuates the other attributes will perish. Wow, that's a heavy question there. Alhamdulillah, it's a very knowledge-based question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of course by extension his divine attributes, is the only thing that will remain. And sifatul wajh min sifatillah, that is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his face. Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they affirm the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because Allah said it about himself. And Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it. So then we follow that. We believe that. We affirm that because Allah affirmed it. He's our Lord. Not the Asharis, not the Maturidiyah, not the any other people from Ahl Kalam and people from Bid'ah. They're not our Lord. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our Lord. So if my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala says he rose above his throne, I say he rose above his throne. And I don't ask how. And I don't negate it. And I don't change its meaning. And I don't change its alfaz, because ta'wil, to distort it, can be ta'wil lafdhiya wa ta'wil ma'nawiyya, which means that some people distort the ayat and the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by changing its pronunciation, the alfaz. And some of them, or they do both, and they change the meaning, because by changing the alfaz you change the meaning anyway. So it's a double type of ta'wil. So Ahl Sunnah doesn't do that. They say that Allah rose above his throne in a manner that suits his majesty. We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a face as he said he has a face, and it's in a manner that suits his majesty. We don't know how. And we don't go into issues we don't know about. We accept it. If that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fi kitabi al-kareem, we accept that. So this is very important from the usul of aqeedah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is that we affirm what Allah affirms about himself, and we negate what Allah ta'ala negates about himself, and we don't ask kayf, we don't ask how. So hopefully that answered your question. I believe you were reading the question from newest to oldest. There are questions at the top. Okay, mistakes must be pointed out as always. All right, I'll try to go to the beginning and see what's happening here. Assalamu alaikum. Can we follow all madhab? Is there evidence amongst the four madhabs that we can do so? Thanks. Can we follow all madhab? So your job is not to follow the madhabs. That's not your job. As we said in the lecture, your job is to follow the truth. That's it. And the imams, the four madhabs, those were four imams of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. They were the imams of the Sunnah. Beginning with Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ash-Shafi'i, Thumma Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, rahimahumullah jami'an. Your job is not to blind follow any of those imams. And it is related that Imam Abu Hanifa said, إِذَا صَحَّ hadith فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. If you find an authentic hadith, then that's my madhab. Another narration, which is attributed, I believe, to Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, if you find a sound hadith and it goes against my statement, throw my statement against the wall. So those were the Imams of the Sunnah, that they loved the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They worshipped Allah Azza wa Jal by following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. They did not want you to blind follow them. The people later, sometimes from their students and those after them, they are the ones who blindly followed, made ta'asub, didn't marry because of madhabs, didn't pray behind each other, all kind of craziness that happened later. Right? Those Imams of the Sunnah. So, taking from all the madhabs, if you have knowledge and you can look at the masail, the issues of the madhabs, then alhamdulillah, you can benefit and practice your deen that way. So your job is not to blind follow any of the madhabs. So that's a strange question why you'd want to follow all the madhabs, but what I'm saying is you're not restricted to any of the madhabs. That maybe you come from a particular country or particular area where they teach a madhab, which is most of the world. So that's how you learn the masail. But that does not mean you take the statement of your sheikh or of that imam and you blind follow it restrictedly, especially if you find that it goes against the evidence or there is stronger evidence to show that statement is incorrect. So what you're ordered to do is follow the truth and follow the correct statements. Bidnillah. That takes knowledge, of course. It takes fiqh. So my advice is study the deen. Study with scholars, and that's okay if you study on a madhab to learn the masail, but not to blindly follow the madhab. You're learning just so you learn, because each of the madhabs, they have their books and they introduce the masail and they have an organization for how the issues were brought up. For example, in the book of Tahara, in the book of Salat, the book of fasting, the book of Zakat, the book of Hajj. So they have how they dealt with those issues and the call of the Imam based on how he understood the evidence or whatever evidence he had from the book and the Sunnah. So that's why we don't blind follow them, but you might start by learning a madhab. Okay? And that's how most people learn fiqh. Can we be a scholar without graduating from Islamic University? Yes, of course you can, because most of the scholars in the Ummah throughout history did not go to Islamic universities. This is only a new trend. Okay? This is a new trend now. Because before, throughout most of Islamic history, there was not universities necessarily. The traditional way of studying Islamic knowledge and Islamic scholars was in circles, study circles, sitting at the feet of scholars and learning the issues, studying various sciences, and memorizing and recording that knowledge, and then teaching that knowledge. Those are the traditional ways. So it doesn't require you to go to university. It's just that now people want to look at your credentials. If you come back to America or wherever country you're from, and you want to get a job as an imam, they're going to say, which university did you graduate? They're not going to ask you how long did you stay in Yemen, most likely. But if you did, they might accept that too, some of them. But a lot of the communities, they want credentials. That's just the reality now. And even in the Muslim countries, a lot of the scholars now, you see that they're educated. They had both. They had formal and informal study. That's why he's Dr. Saleh bin Fawzan, Imam Fawzan. He's also a PhD holder from probably the University of Riyadh, Jamiat al-Imam. And many of the scholars, but those before them, may have studied some in those formal circles, but they studied a lot informally. Even Imam bin Baz and Imam Al-Albani and stuff like this. They taught at the university, the Islamic University, but they did not necessarily graduate or at least graduate beyond a bachelor's degree. And I don't think Imam Al-Albani did at all, but he was an imam. So this comes with the ni'am of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is how traditionally it was. It was in study circles. That's the traditional knowledge. And the one who can do both, this is a great ni'mah to combine, and strengthens your, I believe, strengthens your outlook if you can do both, or if Allah favors you with both. If one is avoiding protesting, what are some things they can do in addition to dua regarding the current situation? Can one sign petitions to send the criminals to jail, donate to anti-racism funds? They definitely, you could petition, write to bring this to light, write your Congress people, senators, what have you, to show your displeasure, to say you want justice. Asking for justice is in accordance with Islam. There's no problem with that. As far as what was the other question, was about something about the donating money to anti-racism organizations. That I wouldn't advise doing, because you may feel in common with them with that one cause, but in fact you could be donating money to a totally un-Islamic, disbelieving organization, an organization that really hates Islam, or that they are, flaming individuals, that they are flaming homosexuals, which is un-Islamic. So even though you have a common goal there, you don't really want that common platform. So it would be better to protest and use your money for Islamic causes, because by spreading Islam, this is really the rectification for all of humanity, by spreading correct Islam. And likewise, giving dawah as far as the issue specifically of racism, by dealing with that head on in our Muslim communities. So we have so much work to do there. That's where your money and your energy should be as well, is that we should be dealing with the racism that we deal with daily in our Muslim communities. A lot of questions. I think. طيب. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. We should follow Muhammad. Do you consider are you aware of Ahl Hadith schools in Pakistan, and would it be optimal to study? Jazakallah khairan. I'm not aware, but it's well known that India, and probably Pakistan as well, has Ahl Hadith. It would be better to ask some of our brothers who are from there, from Pakistan, or they have ties to Pakistan. Like there's many of our brothers from the UK especially that are du'at salafiyya, and they are talabat al-ilm, or just brothers on the Sunnah who go back and forth, who are very aware of the situation as far as Ahl Hadith in Pakistan or Ahl Hadith in India. So you would ask those brothers who have that knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. I know there are. I've talked to enough brothers to know, but to know exactly the ones to be cautious of, because also the Deobandis, they study, you have a lot of them who study Hadith as well. And they may have a group of them that are from Ahl Hadith that study Hadith, but yet their Aqidah is that of Ashari, more or less. So it would be better to ask those people who have knowledge about those places. And there's a lot of brothers, alhamdulillah, who have some of that experience and knowledge. The Hanbalis follow the view that you can see a woman's hair in a marriage meeting. Is this a strong view? Is there a stronger view? There's many different views. So in general, we know that seeing that which will entice you when you're going to sit in the sitting, that will encourage you to marry her is good. Some of the more extreme statements of the scholars, like the Zahiriya, take that to mean that you can see everything, which is not correct. Everything, meaning her with no clothes on. And that's not correct. So let me reiterate that. That is not correct. Barakallahu feek. But, however, these kind of issues, they really go back to the urf. They go back to the custom of that people. So if you are in a particular place, in a very conservative place, in a village in Pakistan, they're not going to let you probably see more than the hair, if you can even see the hair, okay? Or in Afghanistan or something. But if it's a more liberal community, I guess, or more whatever, then maybe you can see more, okay? Maybe you can see the hair and the ears and the neck, or, whatever. Because you want to be able to see the woman you're going to marry. You want to see if there's anything, you want to see those things that are going to entice you. So a lot of that goes back to culture, goes back to the urf, because the shar', one of the principles in the shar' is that if something is not explicit in the sharia, meaning from the Quran and the Sunnah, that it's kind of left open, then the next level or the next place you would look for the definition and for the understanding of that issue would be linguistically in the Arabic language. Or many things, they also go back to the urf. They go back to the custom of that people. So, for example, in America, in general, regardless of what community in America, regardless of their original background or something, it wouldn't be a problem to see the woman's hair mostly. They're not going to have any problem with that. In fact, you're going to probably see the hair, and she's probably going to come out in jeans and maybe even a tight outfit, okay? She's going to show you those things that entice you, because that's the point, is to see her, to see if you are attracted to her. You want to see, and she wants to see you. So again, those things go back to the cult. They go back to the urf. They go back to what's permissible in that society. Because, for example, another example, in Saudi Arabia, and I used to talk to many of my students about this, in some of the places in Saudi that they do not, some of those conservative Bedouin villages and cultures, they're not even allowed to see the woman's face. So then there are many people who did not see their wife's face until they were married. And some of the even probably, I would say mostly very restricted and even ignorant, because that's not from the religion, by the way. That's not from the deen. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to see what we could see. So even if you sneak, if you see her and you see her walking and you already are intended to marry her, you always have that intention. So if you get a glimpse, that's also, it's okay, because the Prophet ﷺ said so. So you try to see what is going to encourage you to marry her. So, like I said, some cultures are so restricted and they're going against the Sunnah that they don't even see the faces. And I've even heard about some extreme issues, and I remember even some Saudis who said they had never seen a woman's face until they came to America. That they grew up even in their own household, perhaps. Maybe their mother only took off in the night. I don't know. Some very extreme situations, which are wrong, but these are just, that shows when we don't have the knowledge of Islam to enlighten us, that a lot of people remain in a state of severe ignorance and could be dangerous. The Hanbalis follow the view that you can see a woman's hair in a marriage meeting is as strong. So yeah, I think we dealt with that, I hope. As far as the Hanbalis going to that, I would have to go back to the books to see specifically if that is the case. Could you please explain? I'm confused about whether to pray in the masjid. Masajid in my locality have open with social distancing restriction, but I'm afraid that I could contract the virus and pass it to my father. If I was fearful like that, then I probably would restrict my prayer in the masjid, pray only sometimes, or I might not do it until this thing is dealt with. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but from what we see from the ulama, there's no harm in that you still remain praying by yourself, because there's still a chance, and you are fearful, especially because you have an elder close to you who is an elder and who's susceptible. So for the sake of protecting them, protect them. Bidnillah ta'ala. A lot of questions here. Have you ever come across opinions saying Tamim Adadi time traveled? Yasser Qadhi said that's one opinion. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. I don't think the term scholar changes based on location. We are one ummah. So scholar, a lot of times when we use the term sheikh, this can refer to sheikh as someone who's high, who's in age. He could be the sheikh of a tribe. You know, it has many meanings, and it does have respect. I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, but what I will say is that no doubt a person who has knowledge that, you know, you can't say, well, a person who studied this many years is a scholar. That's not really the criterion for ilm. And likewise, everyone is not going to be on the level of the major scholars. So to say, for example, there's no scholars in the West or those are wrong mistakes. That's not true. But what would be better to say and more just is to look at different levels of knowledge. That perhaps someone who was a student of knowledge in a particular place, who graduates or finishes his studies or whatever, and they go back to their society, perhaps in their society, they are viewed as a sheikh, as a scholar. And depending on their level of knowledge and their teaching. So sheikh in that sense is relative. Of course it is. That you can't say, you know, and you just call someone he studied, you know, and you just say, no, he's just a small student of knowledge. No. Some people, you know, it depends on their level of knowledge. And perhaps even in their society, they become like scholars. They become scholars in their society because that's who the people refer to. The reality is not everyone is going to, nor is it practical, nor is that really what is wanted, is that everyone's going to call Saudi Arabia from America to get fatwa. That doesn't make sense, you know? And likewise, you have people who have scholarship in America that are strong. Some of them are very strong. And there's many that are even unknown to the people because they're not out there doing dawah, but they're raised in their communities. You have people from all kinds. You have some that are indigenous Americans. You have some from various countries. I know several Somalis that are Somali mashayikh. They are our local mashayikh. You would have never heard of them. They're not going to be on the YouTube, really, or they will only be known in their communities. But they have ilm, and they are the people to refer back to in that society. Or people who are Cham, that are, you know, Cambodian in their origin, or a particular tribe between Cambodia and Vietnamese, that they have their own scholarship in their community. Likewise, you have that with many people. So you have people who have studied, who are like that. They are that is their manzil, or their level in their society. That is their role and that is their level. You know, that's who the people refer back to. That's who the general people. For example, if you go to a general community, they're not going to ask you, can you please get on the phone? Only people would ask you that is coming from mostly Salafi communities. And mostly Salafi, probably indigenous communities. Not ones that have, you know, coming from other immigrant communities. Because they recognize their scholarship and they will... they're not going to say, oh, get on the phone and call Sheikh so-and-so in Saudiya. No, they are going to refer to their imam in the masjid, and he's their sheikh, and he's going to deal with their disputes and deal with things. And it's up to those people to fear Allah and make sure they don't go beyond their level, depending on what their level is. Everyone's different. So... Isn't that also why Tahir is wrong to work with Yaqeen? So I don't know what the question is. Nasser Al-Hamdi has a video on protesting. Many comments expose his origins and funding from Soros. Don't know about it. What do you think about Libya? Do you know Sheikh Khalid Al-Misri? Yeah, I've heard of Sheikh Khalid Al-Misri. I think you're talking about Sheikh Khalid Dhufairi. And then there's Abdullah Dhufairi. And I think he's from Misr. So I am familiar a little bit with some of his works. What do you think about Libya? I think Libya is a disaster. Jameen. What can I do if my families are Hasids? I think you just need to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rectify them and try to show them kindness and goodness to hopefully change their character and behavior. And you can give them dawah with regards to that issue. Show them proofs from the book and the Sunnah, hopefully. Can you clarify regarding what Muhammad Munir said regarding protesting his previous live video, that protesting can be justified from the Quran and the Sunnah? I can't clarify that. I think you need to ask him. What are the best online sites you recommend apart from Al-Athari to learn from? Well, Al-Athari is not up and running, so I can't, but I'm working hard to, and I'm happy with kind of the progress. Today I was shooting some very beneficial lectures that I learned from that really helped me, and so I'm hoping to really come out with something strong when it's finished. But yeah, there's a lot of online things. As somebody mentioned, Abdurrahman Hassan's thing, Madrasat al-Umariya. There's also MIU, the Medina Online Islamic University, and that's out of the UK. That's also good because a lot of students, even myself, I did recording for them. I did Bulugh al-Maram on their platform completely using Bin Uthaymin's Sharh, as well as many other Tulab al-Ilm, especially from the UK. They probably a lot that are known there too, that they participated and helped build that program. That program is up and running. He's had students for a few years. So I would advise also looking at that. MIU, Medina Islamic Online University. So that's also another option that's up and running, and I think it's fairly inexpensive, you know, and so I would trust that platform because I know and I contributed to it, so I know what was taught there. If one hears rumbling, they think they pass gas but don't hear or feel anything, must they break their salat? So the Prophet ﷺ said, شُكِيَ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رجل يخيل إليه أنه يجد الشيء في الصلاة قال لا تنصرف حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. So the Prophet ﷺ said that a man, or it was said that a man came and complained to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, you know, that basically I think I passed gas. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, do not leave the prayer unless you heard something or you smelled something. So that's your dawabit there. You know, unless you know for sure. If you know for sure you felt it, you know you passed gas, well then you go break the salat, because the salat is broken anyway. But the Prophet ﷺ mentioned hatta yasma sautin or yajida rihan. So basically, if you smell something or you hear something, that's your gas. Break your salat. Khalas. If it is your stomach, you know it's your stomach, because we all have that. We all know, and you yourself are the ones who can tell that difference. If you know it was your stomach, or it was some weird thing that goes in your intestine but it doesn't come out, a weird sound and feeling, and you know whether it came out. If it didn't come out, then you didn't pass gas. If it came out, you passed gas. So that's what is going to be your qiyud, or your restrictions for determining whether you pass gas or not. So mostly you know yourself. Uh, we aren't supposed to work with groups that oppose the Sunnah and call to kufr. Of course, you shouldn't. Can you explain Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab attacking the Ottoman Empire and why he did it when it is against Ahl Sunnah? I can't, because it's just too big. It's just too much to go in and give it its haq. However, I'll just say one thing, that some of the controversy is that basically a couple of issues, that what you hear a lot of scholars mention is that, for one, the Ottoman did not have control over Najd. They did not have control over it because that was just desert. It was just sheikhdoms. They were like independent sovereign tribes. So they didn't have control of that, for one. So it wasn't rebellion against the leader. Secondly, also, many of them made takfir of them also, the Ottoman Empire, saying that the shirkiyat, which was well known and well documented from those leaders and under their empire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I don't really see a great benefit. I mean, that's an issue, mas'ala ilmiya. It's a knowledge-based issue. It's good, but it doesn't change the fact of the da'wah to Ahl Sunnah. It doesn't change the fact of the da'wah to Tawheed, regardless of whether you believe, Muhammad ibn Wahhab is a scholar or not, or whatever your view is on that. That's a good issue to research. You can research it more if you feel the need to. But what's more important is knowing that he wasn't Khawarij, he wasn't Takfiri, and that and to study his books and treatises, and then you'll have an idea, you'll have better insight of what his own arguments were and what the arguments of his grandsons and the A'immat ad-Dawah. Should I focus on my career in order to become able to provide for a family, or focus on pursuing knowledge overseas? That's a complicated question. You're going to have to determine what's best. You have to provide. Providing for your family is wajib. Pursuing knowledge overseas is something recommended. Abu Dhar said, radiyallahu ta'ala, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day, and I heard him saying, there's something I fear for my ummah than the Dajjal. It was then that I became afraid, so I said, Ya Rasulullah, which thing is that? He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, misguided and stray scholars. Is protesting permissible in Islam? The scholars mention, of course, for one, that's a very general question when you say something, is protesting permissible in Islam? So the generic answer, and when it comes to a Muslim society, so that's a whole different masala. So you see the nuances of the issue when you say that. So the asl is protesting is not from Islam. However, and we know in a Muslim society especially, the scholars have mentioned in detail that is a type of khuruj, it's a type of going against the Muslim ruler. So it would not be permissible for you to protest in a Muslim country. And even there are scholars of Ahl Sunnah, or there is a scholar of Ahl Sunnah who issued a fatwa, but he also gave specific restrictions to it, and basically it was with the support of the Muslim ruler. So it was actually almost, you could say, a guide, or under the puppeting of the Muslim ruler. So it was under their approval, so then they were able to protest something else. Okay? So in general, in a Muslim land, definitely that is not permissible, because it's a type of rebellion against the leader. Because you can rebel against with the tongue, or you can rebel with the sword. Okay? The other issue, which is why this has become such a hot topic now, is because of people talking about protesting non-Muslim land. That's a different mas'ala. And that really requires darasa. It requires studying that issue. Because we would say the asl is it's not permissible. Or no, I'm sorry. The asl is that it is not known from Islam. However, you protesting, is that a form of ibadah? Or is that a form of you trying to get your rights? So there are many nuances that require the darasa, the study from a scholar or scholars to understand that issue and how to deal with those issues. For example, what's going on now, and now many Muslims are protesting with those movements. And Muslims have been protesting prior to this, especially Ikhwan Muslimin influence groups and others. For them, that's no issue. But we're talking about Ahl Sunnah, that Ahl Sunnah in general has always spoken out against protest in the contemporary context, and always the context was in Muslim countries. So now you're talking about another issue which has its own details as far as in a non-Muslim land. So again, that requires study. These are not easy answers. A lot of people want a fatwa, or they want a prohibition by just putting a coin into a thing and then it spits out an answer. So it just doesn't work that way. These are very complex issues that probably have not been dealt with throughout world history. These are contemporary issues, so they need real scholarship from major scholars to look at those issues, make darasa of those issues, and make a hukum based upon those, or at least well-grounded mashayikh or what have you, or of that society, to look at what they feel is permissible and how that relates in the context of the book and the Sunnah. So that's about what I can say with that, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Allah knows best, but you should make a video on the whole Ottoman. I don't really see that. Again, that's a big controversial issue. I don't think. Are you a student of Sheikh Mohammed bin Hadi? I take from him and Sheikh Suleiman al-Raheli. Sheikh Mohammed bin Hadi, I can say I only sat with a little bit. I'd go to some of his some lectures. When he would do a lecture that was a general lecture, not studying books with him, except when he would do some of the Dorat Almiya, when it was a lot of the Mashayikh together. So Muhammad bin Hadi, I really wouldn't consider myself necessarily a student of his, because I didn't sit and study books with him. I went to some of his durus. I studied a little bit of Umdat Ahkam when he was teaching teaching that in his masjid, but I didn't see that he was regular in his durus. So for me, I stuck with those who were consistent, because I showed up at his durus at the masjid right next to his house, and he, wasn't there on more than one occasion. So for me, I just stuck with those durus where it was more consistent. As far as Sheikh Suleiman al-Raheli, definitely I would consider myself a student of his, because I spent years studying with him, and I was always in the front row when I was in his classes, next to his reader, who I knew very well, who was the reader back then, a Yemeni sheikh named Sheikh Yassin. I don't know his last name. I don't know what happened to him. I think he probably did his PhD thesis in Jama Islamiyya, and then he probably went back to Yemen. I don't know. But Sheikh Yassin was his reader back then. He was very close, and I was very close to him. He gave me some nice stuff, and I would sit next to him, and I would have my digital recorder right under the Sheikh's beard, and I benefited from him tremendously. And he lived very close to my house on Shari Sultana. If you are familiar with that in Medina, he used to live. There used to be a Starbucks masjid. I used to try to pray in there if I wanted to catch him for questions for Salat al-Asr, because he used to pray there, but he was always sick back then. And alhamdulillah, Allah seems to have blessed him with better health. So yes, I'm a student of Sheikh Suleiman al-Raheli. What's the stance on people making dawah, and once they reach huge following, they start throwing in commercials in their videos trying to make money? Well, that is what's interesting. I heard Muhammad Munir, Mufti Munir mention about that, which I thought was interesting. The bottom line is, I've preferred not to do those things, and obviously I don't have a big following and all that stuff, but I preferred not, because I always felt there was a tension with the sincerity maybe. But I would not hold it against someone at all, because you need to finance dawah. Dawah needs to be financed. There's no way. Many of the things, even the fact that I'm teaching a lot right now, is only because I'm unemployed. If I was doing a 9 to 5 and it was a job that was away from this, then I wouldn't have time. So it takes money to do dawah. It takes money to get, as I mentioned, the books. It takes money. I would love to, just for clarity, because some people maybe have the concept that Athletes is going to be a free institute. It's not. It's going to take money. It takes money to build that. It takes thousands and thousands of dollars to build that. Alhamdulillah, people have donated, and may Allah reward everyone for every penny. But as far as the money I collected compared to the money that I have to spend, and I have already spent, is very little. You know, maybe, alhamdulillah, people have donated probably about $2,000 or a little more. Well, alhamdulillah, what a ni'mah min ni'amillah. However, just my books that I used for teaching in that institute was $15,000 to move it from Saudi Arabia to here. That doesn't include anything else. You know, so that money I will use for the actual meat of the institute, like the website and things like this when it gets to that stage, and things related directly to it. My point is it takes money to do dawah. It takes money. So I have no issue with those dawah channels that do it, because they need support. We need support. We don't have governments. We don't have anybody. If you don't support your du'at and you don't support that dawah, that means it's not really worth that much to you. And on top of that, it just can't continue. It's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the means that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala blesses us, is with finances. For example, look at what the brother Abdurrahman is doing. He's doing a lot of fantastic things. He obviously has backing. He has a community. He has a beautiful website. He's got this. That's a ni'mah min ni'amillah. That costs money. It takes wealthy people, or it takes people. It takes something. You don't just, you know, to do quality, it takes finances. It's just the sadness. It's the reality of our world. So people who, anyway, that's to put it in a nutshell, the bottom line is it takes money to do anything. So I don't have any problem with people who do that, because I've thought about it myself many times, that, you know, it would help. It would help to finance something. You know, everything is what we are giving, and we give it bi'idhnillah ta'ala for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we see that people don't want what you have to give, might as well become a computer programmer or something. You know, I have my books and stuff for me, because I enjoy teaching Islam. But if I see that there's no support for what I'm doing, I'm not even talking about financial support, I'm talking about even people listening, then there's no reason for me to waste my time. Although I do like to write, I do like to research, and I do enjoy teaching. So it is what it is, but you have to realize that it does, it takes the world, it takes money to go around, plain and simple. And dawah is no exception. A lot of different comments and questions. I prefer if we left some of the comments, and if people have questions, just put the questions, because there's so much stuff we read here. And then, you know, it's hard to find out what, you know, I might miss whatever someone has an important question. Some people that use history as a part of their minhaj to derive rulings, whether it's haram or halal, are they mubtadi'un mutlaqan? If so, which sect is known for this? I don't know. And I don't know anybody who uses history necessarily. That takes a lot of istifsar. I don't know anything about that. If someone does something wrong in prayer, which is evident from the Quran and Sunnah, for example, lifting finger only at La ilaha illallah and tashahhud, are they sinful, or do they get less reward? No, because you can't say that that's wrong mutlaqan. You can't say that. That there are different narrations. So that's why the point is having knowledge. Knowledge helps you to discern that maybe the Prophet ﷺ did this, which is mentioned in this hadith, and it's mentioned like this in this hadith. So some acts of ibadah have various kayfiyat. They have different ways, different characteristics of how he did it. Like ghusl, or many things. You know, there's ghusl shar'i. There's the ghusl kifaya, you know, which is sufficient for making a ghusl when you have to wash yourself. Then there is the ghusl which is following the sunnah. There are sunnah of wudu. There are sunnah of salat. So to say that that's wrong and that someone is getting no ajr, no, or that that's bid'ah, la, that's not sahih. That's not truth. That's not the haqq. But rather, many acts of ibadah and fiqh especially, that sometimes they have more than one way of doing it, and there's authentic ahadith to support both ways or more than one way. And sometimes it's a matter of some evidence being stronger than the other. So my advice is learn, and do not, if there is something someone is practicing which has a sound statements of scholars that practice that and understand that, even if you disagree with that opinion, not to take a harsh position. In general, you should not do that at all. And this has been a mushkila for a lot of people, is taking harsh opinions about things in fiqh or otherwise that don't require that harshness and only cause division. How can I donate from the Netherlands? I have no credit card. If you mean to Al-Albani Institute, then that is, you can do it by PayPal, I guess. And PayPal, it would be greenkhalid@gmail.com. That would be the PayPal account. So you could do it that way. What is your favorite book right now and your favorite when you began? My favorite book that I like to read, I can't really say, but I love Aqidah books. I love many books, the kind of books that I enjoy. I can only say the kind of books. My favorites are probably explanations of Aqidah books, Shurahat of Hadith. Also, books that I've studied and I understood. I like also, like I have some books in Qawaid Fiqhiyah, basic book, and I really love it because it was so comprehensible and we studied it. And it's just memories, and it's a book that I would go back to. I love Umdat Ahkam and its explanations. I just finished, for Al-Albani Institute, I just finished recording the Kitab al-Tahara, which is going to be a part of level 1. So I finished basically level 1. It's finished. It just needs to be edited. I need my editor to come through and edit the videos, and then it'll be ready for uploading when I get the website. So so we're making progress, alhamdulillah. So I enjoy those kind of books. I love a lot of Bin Uthaymeen's books. A book also in fiqh. I love fiqh explanations, like Bin Uthaymeen's explanation of Zad al-Mustaqna, which is called, I can't think of it right now. It's 15 volumes. I've used it and I love it. It is an excellent go-to book in reference. What is it called? Let's see. It's right in front of me. Sharh Mumti', which is an excellent, necessary book. And I love that for fiqh, because it's fiqh, it's comparative fiqh. So it gives you he gives you a lot of the madhabs. The Hanafis say this and their evidence is this. The Hanbalis say this and their evidence is this. My view is this, which is in agreement with this madhab on this issue. I love it. Also, I love, of course, Al-Mughni, which is a immensely important book. Also, so I like those explanations of fiqh books. Another piece of gold that I haven't been using and I want to get into it. And I bought it right before I left Saudi. It came out. It is super gold. And it is an explanation of a very important book by Ibn Rushd in fiqh, which they study in Jam' Islamiyya, which is what is it? It is Bidayat Mujtahid. This is an explanation of Bidayat Mujtahid, and it is 16 volumes, and it is like gold. It is gold. So those kind of books are juicy, lovely, beautiful. They taste good, they smell good, and we can't wait to just benefit from the Messiah. Those are lovely. So I love those kind of books too. I love a lot of a lot of the Aqidah books. That's what I have. I even like a lot of those what we call minhaji books. So these are mainly from I love the books of the Salaf too. Classical Aqidah books and books with the narrations of the Salaf. I love those books. Try to have all the classic books. Also, and any explanations of any of those kind of books, I love them. Also, of our contemporary scholars, I have a lot of good books that are compilation from Imam Al-Albani's tapes. And there's just so much, but Aqidah books is what you'll find a lot that I have, and fatwa of a lot of different ulama in the past. Of course, you have to have Mijmu' Fatawa Shaykh al-Islam. But if you Bin Baz's Fatawa, Imam Sa'di's Fatawa, what's of Imam Fawzan, Imam Muqbil, which is not much, but probably more in the future from his tapes. Of course, Bin Uthaymeen, you got to have it. The Lejna, the major committee of major scholars, those are also important references and resources, and also other great scholars who've passed on and their fatwa, and some in Sardiya that are not well known, but they were part of the committee of major scholars, and they left beautiful fatwa, and just going in some of those books, it's just lovely as well. So I like a lot of different kind of books. Yeah. I think many people have talked about the ruling of oral sex, akramakumullah, and of course, some of the scholars, they mention that it's disliked. Even some hold the view that it's haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and I believe that it is that there's no problem with it. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that, so I can't think of the ayah right now, but that your wives are a tilt to you, so go to your wives as you please. The general statement. So, and also that you can enjoy, the women however you wish, except for, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, when she's in her menstruation, and also akramakumullah, from the anus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and you and forgive us and you. Ameen. Lots and lots of questions. Wow. Or a lot of comments too. What if the case that their dawah, and I'm not sure whose dawah you're talking about, is more clickbait and drama? Well, then calling to the sunnah, then the sin is on them, I mean, innamal a'malu binniyat, you're rewarded according to your intention. If they miss one sajda, should he repeat rakat? Or do sajda forgiveness? Where can I read up on that in English? In English, mashallah, there's some good. Go to Imam Fawzan's Malakhis Fiqhiyya, is it translated in English, and that's very good. About sajda sahaw. So there's a lot of English books related to that, and no, there's a lot of English books related to that. No evidence for the sunnah. You can't even claim it's sunnah then. Is Sharh Sunnah Barbahari something for a fairly beginner student of knowledge? No, I wouldn't say that at all. Sharh Sunnah is it's something I actually want to teach in Al-Athari Institute, and it will be at the higher levels. It'll be level 4, it'll be the higher levels, some of those actual books of the Salaf. And that's the point kind of Athari Institute. I want to incorporate that in my curriculum, really some good books of the Salaf, not just the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and stuff like this, which are super important as far as related to Tawheed, and citing the books of the Salaf and inviting people to understand those books. So Sharh Sunnah is a much more complex book, and for the issues that are in there, and even mistakes that are in there from Imam Barbahari, as no one is free from mistakes. So those kind of things, they are more advanced books. The beginning student of knowledge and the general people, you really wouldn't teach that. But I think the people have done that in the past, and sometimes that just comes from a lack of experience and knowledge that many of us didn't have, that we thought everybody should have every kind of knowledge, and those were exciting books to go through. So it's a much more advanced general Aqidah book, of dealing with so many masail of Aqidah, and it's a Majmul Aqidah book. It's a book where it deals with many of the issues and the usul of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. It's one of those books. It's not specifically about Tawheed or an aspect of Tawheed or something, but it covers the general Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah and a lot of minhaji or methodological issues as well of Ahl Sunnah. Have you read the books of Hafiz bin Ahmed al-Hakami, rahmatullahi alayhi, rahmatin wasiya? Some of his books, I have some of his books. You know, he's a great imam, and he's also the sheikh of many of our scholars, Allah yarhamuhum, like Imam Ahmed al-Najmi and other than them, and Sheikh Rabi, I believe, and others. But yeah, some of his books, you know, related to the shurut of la ilaha illallah and things like this. Yes, we've went through some of those texts, or at least texts that were from his text. No. No. So there are multiple options. Can you take both? Yes. Yeah, when you mean multiple options, that means multiple things that are thabit in the Sunnah. If there's different ways of doing an act of ibadah that are affirmed in the Sunnah, not that one is weak, one is just this or that and the other, then if there are many different sifat, then of course you can. And then it would be Sunnah to actually do it this way one time and do it that way another time. And that's what the scholars mention. It's good to to combine between different sunnahs. You know, if there's one sunnah that says something, doing a particular thing one way and another way. Actions, the Khalif's action as though it's hujjah to say khuruj is halal and the tyrant. Muslim leader, when the hadith of Habibullah clearly says haram. If there are multiple opinions, no. May Allah bless us with success. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.